Hey guys, we got a great conversation today. Our friend Jade McCarthy returns, the former ESPN anchor. She's back, and today she's talking to the one and only Bethany Hamilton. That's right, surfing legend Bethany Hamilton. That conversation is coming up right now on Sports Spectrum.
Welcome to the Sports Spectrum Podcast, the intersection of sports and faith. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the show. I am Jason Romano, and we are excited about today's conversation with Bethany Hamilton and our friend Jade McCarthy, and it's coming up in a second right here on the show. Make sure you go check out sportsspectrum.com for all of our content, sportsspectrum.com. That is the home for our podcast. That is the home for our devotionals. That is the home for stories and articles, bringing Jesus back into the conversation in the intersection of sports and faith. And what we want to do is recommend that when you're at the website, you look at it as a resource, a way to share your faith with someone else. So you take the stories, the articles, the podcasts, the devotionals, and share it with someone. Share today's interview with someone who might be interested in hearing about Bethany Hamilton, all that she's doing today, and where God has brought her to today. And maybe it's an opportunity to share the gospel through this podcast. So look at Sports Spectrum as a resource that you can share the gospel with someone else. Check it all out at sportsspectrum.com. We want to say thanks to our partners and sponsors today as well. Compassion International. They are the most trusted child development ministry in the world. And we know this. Due to COVID-19, 70,000 children and their families in compassion programs were stuck in a really bad spot and still need your urgent support. 70,000 is the capacity of the average pro football stadium, and thus Fill the Stadium was born a year and a half ago. And so our goal was to make sure that these 70,000 kids and their families were not left in the dust because of COVID-19. And so Compassion and our pro athlete friends stepped up, teamed up, and are standing in the gap for these children and their families. And think about this. When you donate, you're talking about helping a family with essential food, nutritional supplements, hygiene essentials, medical screenings for COVID-19, the basic necessities that these children and their families need. Now, here's the good news. We filled almost 60,000 seats. We are doing amazing work. You are doing amazing work in helping us fill the stadium, every seat representing a child in need. 57,000 seats as of this recording. Our goal is still 70,000 though, so we have a lot more work to do. We need your help. So join us. Help restore what COVID-19 destroyed in providing essential food, medical care, and support for a child and their family during this pandemic. Go to fillthestadium.com to learn more and to donate today. Fillthestadium.com. All right, our conversation today with Bethany Hamilton. Remember when she was 13 years old, thrusted into the spotlight, attacked by a 14-foot tiger shark. She lost her arm, the traumatic injury seemingly ending her dream career as a professional surfer. However, just 1 month after the attack, she returned to surfing and within 2 years had won her first national surfing title. At 17, she realized her dream of surfing professionally, and she's still active surfing competitively today, to this day. She had a project a couple years back in a film called Bethany Hamilton Unstoppable. There was a movie made about her life, and she is an inspiration because her goal really is to share the gospel and do that through surfing and through the platform that the Lord has given her. She's a surfing Hall of Famer, and she's talking to our friend Jade McCarthy today on Sports Spectrum. Let's take a listen.
So Bethany Hamilton here with us on the Sports Spectrum podcast today. And Bethany, I am super excited to share in this conversation with you. And I guess just to start, like mom to mom, I know I have 4 young kids at home. You have 3 young kiddos at home. Congratulations on the newest. How old?
Thank you.
Micah is 4 months, you said?
Yep, he's 4 months as of yesterday. So yeah, we're in the thick of it, but he's so amazing. He's just like yesterday I had this sweet moment after I breastfed him. and he's like staring up at me, just like smiling. It was so sweet.
Those moments just like hit your heart and you're just like, wow, I have to treasure this forever, right?
For
Like,
sure. I bust out my camera to film him here and there because I'm like, I'm gonna look back on these one day and just like cry.
yeah, and it is like you said it yourself, you feel like you're in the thick of it. So, like, what is life right now for you on a day to day?
Yeah, life right now is definitely survival mode, as far as motherhood, and it just seems like there's a lot going on, and kind of getting back into more work stuff. So just finding that continual balance, and but overall, I'm so thankful for like where I'm at and been able to get in the ocean and surf. So that's just been so refreshing and reviving for me. I'm such like a surfer at heart. So that's just like my happy place and my place to like slow down and be present and also like get some adrenaline pumping. So
It's the perfect combination of like peace and exhilaration, it sounds like for you.
100%.
What is that motivation for you like now in terms of surfing? Because you've accomplished so much in the sport. How much does that sport continue to motivate you, and how much does the competition continue to motivate you?
Yeah, so it's pretty wild. I'll share a little bit about like the last year and a half or 2 years for myself. But about 2 years ago, I decided to go like 100% into competition. So I like hired like one of the best surfing coaches in the US and started training really hard to like compete full time. And then I flew down to Australia with my entire family last February. And not like this last one, but 2020.
So right,
2020.
sort of right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Just
So
sort
we
of
were
like
aware of the coronavirus, but we're like, okay, I don't know what this is gonna do. Let's just like head to Australia and do our thing. Competed in my first couple events, flew to New Zealand for my next event. As I got on the plane to New Zealand, I was like, okay, this event's canceled. We're not going to be running it due to coronavirus. So my family and I did a quick like road trip around New Zealand because we had spent all the money. We went there. We were like just basically in nature and we didn't really like comprehend where things were going.
Sure.
We got on the last flight home to Hawaii before everything locked down in New Zealand because New Zealand had like a hard lockdown, like no flights in at all, I think, and a lot of flights not out. So we made it home, and then I realized that there was no competitive surfing the rest of the year. Pretty quickly, I just kind of had a good read on everything. I figured it was not 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I figured it was just like going to be a crazy year.
Yeah.
And it was. So long story short, we're like, well, we're not going to be able to travel. So we decided to have another baby and I got pregnant like immediately. And so life just changed really fast. But that was like really mentally challenging for me. I had put so much mental focus and commitment and time and training and just all my eggs in, and then to just have it like stripped in a matter of days was just so mentally deranging. So took me a good like 4 months to recover, if not more. And then but I had something to hope towards, and I'm like now I'm mama of little baby Micah and starting to get back in the surf. And I don't know what I'll be doing with surfing at this point yet because I'm just not ready to commit to anything. Just seeing how things play out over the next 9 months and then go from there. But it's just been like a really beautiful season as far as family life and having a new little one and just all the times together as a family here in Hawaii and yeah, just living life to the fullest.
Is part of that in terms of figuring out what your future is surf wise? Is that like all on a personal decision and figuring out what works for you? Or is part of that just seeing where things kind of develop post COVID with competitions and everything?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, because I think like we're not out of the thick of it yet, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens over the next 9 months. And then also personally, I just don't know how much traveling's so weird right now, and like with just little children, and just like I don't feel at peace about that. So even though we're actually about to go to the States, the mainland, in like a couple of weeks, but we're gonna go visit family and stuff. It's just like more of like personal travel. But
Sure.
I've just like had a lot of talks with competitive surfers, and it's just like really challenging and kind of like not feeling like normal. So I've heard of like several surfers retiring based off this last year of competition. And so I'm just gonna like feel it out. Either way, I'll be surfing and like pushing myself and getting my body back in good shape, and just like enjoying my sport. And I still surf for my main sponsor, Rip Curl, so we'll see what they got up their sleeves, and just kind of taking it one day at a time, and enjoying life to the fullest.
And you have a lot of other endeavors that you're working on professionally as well. Your documentary Unstoppable debuted almost 2 years ago now. Hard to believe because time
I
just
know.
keeps ticking, right? But you're doing so much more with Unstoppable. And I had a chance to look at some of the online sort of life course that you have available to people. And one of the tenets of it, and I noted, is faith is the bedrock of living an unstoppable life. Can you just expound on what that means to you?
Yeah. So, I think I've put out this kind of message the last like 5 years, or maybe my whole life. I worked on a documentary for about 5, 6 years, shortly around when I was 25, and the next 5 years. And then it just released a couple of years ago. And it was just pushing out this message of like overcoming and living unstoppable. And to me, that's not about being perfect or having it all together, but more like adapting through the chaos and making the most of what you've got. Like, I've had one arm since I was 13 years old. So there's always like different challenges that come my way physically and even mentally. And even beyond that, life's just always throwing us for a loop. So
All of us.
learning to like take tools beyond like living a life of faith, but also like, I've always sought after coaches to push me, or, people to encourage me, found my right community to help me like reach my goals. I've trained my mind in different ways to adapt and push through like pain points. I've just focused on my health and nutrition so that I can function to my fullest. And all these things kind of like eventually got to the point where I was like, wow, like, I don't know where this comes from sometimes. Like, just chaos will be all around me, and I'm just like able to find my calm and like push through it and like come out stronger on the other side. And I just see a lot of people, like, we all struggle at times. We all have challenge coming our way, and we all have the ability and choice to push through that, or find the right tools to overcome. And so I just wanted to share what I learned along the way, and just empower people in a way that's not necessarily seeing like I think therapists can be amazing, but that can be like really expensive. So just having a course that like captures all the things that, like, in my mind, check off like an unstoppable life, and like cheering people on to like just overcome and live resiliently and adapt and like just make the most of what they've got. And so now I've just been like sharing that message through my course, through life coaching, through just whatever I give out on my social media and my blog. And it's really fun and meaningful. And I just seeing lives change is really cool. And I love just being in this space.
One of the people that you had on as part of your course was Tim Tebow, and you guys spoke about identity together. And I wonder, from that conversation, like, what stood out to you? What was the thing that he said that you were like, wow, like that really kind of hit me?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people don't realize his story. Like, he really struggled for some time of like just his identity and like where he found his worth, so to say. And then once he figured out like where he placed his value in, it wasn't all the noise didn't matter. Like he was able to like focus on him and do his thing versus like let the noise bother and slow him down or make him to become like something he's not. So for him, like it was very like he figured out whose he was versus like it being all about him. And so I think when you take the focus off me, myself, and I, like, and know that you're loved and you have value and worth and purpose beyond yourself, like you're able to then like ignore the noise and chaos and just, you know, all that and make the most of what you've got.
Yeah, I found his way of framing it, not who, but whose
Yeah.
I am, is it's powerful to think about it that way. And it's such a slight change of wording, but it's a slight change that makes a big difference when it comes to how we view ourselves and, like you said, what impacts us and distracts us ultimately, right?
Yeah. And I think like so many of our young people now are just being blown to and from like with the noise of mainstream, the news, social media, like there's all of this like kind of just chaos that doesn't really like make the world a better place, but they're being hugely impacted by it and hugely affected. And then all of a sudden they're just like emotionally reactive to every little thing versus like just being a decent human and going and being the best you can be at whatever it is that you're setting your mind towards. And that alone is going to just make the world a better place. And just being kind to people around you. It doesn't have to be all this like individualized like rights or what. I don't know. I don't need to go there, but I just think there's just like a lot of nonsense that just like doesn't really make the world a better place. So just raising up our young people to know, like, find their confidence beyond like the chaos and knowing that they have value and worth and that they can make the world a better place by simply, you know, whether you believe in God or not, like I trusted in God through the most chaotic times in my life. And that was my steady like rock versus like being blown away with like all my friends. Like I had a lot of different friend groups. Some were like heavily involved in drugs and alcohol abuse. And I just like, I knew that wasn't going to bring me towards where I wanted to go. So it was an easy no. And, you know, when I lost my arm, I was just thankful to be alive. Like I approached life with these different mindsets and like boundaries that protected me and like my dreams and goals. And they didn't feel like sacrifices because I went on to be successful and reach more than I even dreamed of reaching because I knew that the so-called sacrifices were going to be worth it in the long run, and they were.
I wonder, you know, you mentioned losing your arm, and of course that was with the shark attack. You were 13 years old, and talk about facing a major challenge at a fairly young age. Like most people, I think, look at that and are just sort of blown away by the enormous test that you had to go through. And I wonder, when you look back at it now, how do you perceive the test that you went through at that point in time?
Yeah, I know. It's actually like pretty crazy because I remember like the few days before, like, you know, you grow up and when you grow up in the ocean environment, you're aware of sharks and you're aware of like that being a potential, so to say. But at the same time, it's so rare that you're like, oh, that's never going to happen to me. But then it did.
Right.
And I like recognize that, yes, it's so rare, but it did happen to me. But I look at it as something that really brought a lot of beauty and goodness to the world. And like, I wouldn't change that day to be something else, even if I could, because I just see all the goodness that's come from that circumstance. And yeah, my life's been like extra challenging and I have had to do like extra adapting through all my physical differences and how that can even carry into the mind as well. And so adapting mentally and physically and just like, you know, pushing through those pain points and those challenging times. But ultimately, like, I just believe that God had more for my life, even in the pain of that moment. And I just see like so many young kids have heard of my story and they're going through painful, challenging times, and they're reminded by like what I've been through, like that they too can overcome. And I'm like, people need that hint of hope. They need that like reminder that they can, and that they can push through and overcome these painful circumstances that they're facing. And so, as much of a sacrifice as it was, there's also like so much worth and value to having to face that and overcome. And today I'm so thankful for the life I have, and being a mom of 3 boys and an amazing husband, and just being able to encourage people is just such a gift in itself. So I just want to like keep doing it.
It's funny because, as I was thinking about this conversation, Bethany, one of the things that came to mind for me was the scripture from James where he says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face challenges of any kind, because struggle produces perseverance." And I wondered if that verse resonates with you, because you have persevered through the struggle and you have seen the joy that you just spoke of coming out on the other side.
Yeah, there's so many different forms of challenge and pain. Like, there's physical health, there's oppression via other outside circumstances, there's, world events, there's just, the unknown circumstances like losing your arm to a shark or like crazy car accident. There's just so many things that can feel like an attack on our life. But when we flip our mindset to see like, hey, like what can I do from this circumstance, or how can I make the most of what I've got, or flipping from like, oh, this happened to me, and being a victim, to like, I'm going to overcome this and like become a champion, so to say. And like, it doesn't have to look like a world renowned, like public thing, but we all have our things that we're facing and we're struggling with. To this day, I'm like, lately a lot of my challenges are more of like mom life challenges, and just like overcoming like mental like roadblocks that I face, and like being able to like catch myself when I'm like imperfect mama, or like your toddler is like the most whiny, like going through a whiny season, and you're trying to like find your calm in their constant whining, like
Been there.
yeah, these challenges, like they're just endless. And so recognizing that we are going to face challenge, and like how we can adapt through it is so important.
Yeah. And I think back to like you going through that when you were 13, and then like dealing with the media spotlight that came with it as a result, and like not being thrown off by all that noise that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And to me, it just strikes me that going through all of that just must have set you up in such a unique way for the other challenges that you would face throughout the course of your life, right? Because it's not like we get through one challenge and then it's smooth sailing. Like,
Yeah.
that's just not the way it goes, right? I mean, we get through one, hopefully we grow through it, and then on comes the next one.
Yeah.
So how would you say like that positioned you to have that growth mindset and to have that focus on the good, and as opposed to being the victim, right? I like to say, from like not victim but victor, right? Like that's kind of the way we want to frame it. So how did that set you up then to deal with everything that continues to come your way?
Yeah, well, I recognize now in like my adult life the things that kind of kept me level-headed and like resilient through my challenges, and a lot of them I share in my life course now. It's like it started with like one being like full of gratitude. Like I don't have a life course on gratitude, but it naturally intertwines in almost every single course that we put out there. Like just finding your gratitude no matter what you're going through. Like when I lost my arm, I woke up in the hospital and I was like, oh my gosh, my arm is gone. but I realized that I could have died that day, and I was thankful to be alive. And even though I didn't know what my future looked like, I trusted that God had more for me, and I was just thankful to have breath. So that's been like a key. But from there, a lot of like what I talk about is adapting. It's like I was appreciative. Trying to remember. I have like this adapt approach. I need to like, it's like from I directed myself. I found my goals. I set boundaries around my goals. I had direction. And I think so often we need direction. Like, why is suicide at an all-time high right now? It's because everybody has no direction. They're stuck in this like fear cycle, and they have no direction of where they're going. And that's not a healthy place to be. So if you're struggling right now today, like, find your direction, set some goals for yourself that you can reach. You don't have to sit on your couch and be lazy and wait for the world to wake up. There's things that you can do. There's endless opportunities if you're willing to put the time in and like find something you're passionate about that you can actually work towards. We need direction. From there, it's, also finding your community or your people to push you, whether it's finding people that are just good friends that see the best in you and like nudge you in a good direction and are cheering you on. And even in my teen years, that was so key. And in my adult life, just surrounding myself with like women that cheer on marriage. Like, I want to have a long lasting, healthy marriage. I'm going to surround myself with women that are like-minded so that we cheer each other on through those tougher seasons. In sport, like finding the coaches that are going to like pick out your like weak spots and like tell it to you straight, and then find the correction points and like how you can get better, and being willing to be teachable. There's so many things we can do in life to set ourselves up for success, but we have to be willing and open and looking to find those things.
Yeah. And you have to be willing to do the work, right? And part of that
100%.
is like, okay, I'm going to take this step forward, and it's an action. Like, you can't just sit there in the swirl. You have to be willing to take action and put in the work. Even when you don't know what the result is.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times the reason why we fade out or burn out is we set too many goals. So like narrowing it down to like 1 to 3 goals at most, depending on your circumstances, and then setting baby steps that are very like approachable and reachable and that you can chip away at, versus like, I'm going to run a marathon, but I've never even ran a mile.
Right.
So like running the mile first, or the half a mile or quarter mile, and then like slowly building up to the marathon. But not really like, I'm not saying like marathon, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, like we got to run the mile first, or like maybe it's like 500 yards first. And then like, so making it very approachable, and like also protecting the boundaries, surrounding yourself with the right people, and creating that environment that's like gonna be like, I got this, I can overcome, and I can be unstoppable even though I'm not perfect.
And you never know, you might find yourself running marathons. I have a girlfriend who was never a runner, and after her 3rd baby, she decided she wanted to get into running, and now she actually does run marathons. And she was the first female finisher in the last one that she was in. So she's running Boston, which is a huge marathon, obviously, this fall. So you never know, right? Like, once you're in there and you're doing the work, there can be great to come out of it.
And maybe you're like, just like, I can't even think of something to do. And I think that has to be the, like, I got to be willing to try and put myself outside of my comfort zone. Maybe you get a friend too that's like, can join you in the journey and like try some different things, like put yourself out there. Like, you can't just like sit back and like wait for something to come to you. You got to be like actively seeking something to do and try, and like, yeah, just like be willing to like fail, because all like the most successful people in life, like they fail or like struggle or like fall down along the way, and then they have their wins and successes along the way too.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break from our conversation here on Sports Spectrum to tell you a little bit more about our friends at Compassion International and our Fill the Stadium initiative. COVID-19 last year wreaked havoc on the world. It also wreaked havoc on compassion. See, 70,000 kids and their families in compassion programs were going to be stuck without a sponsorship once everything shut down. 70,000 is also the capacity of the average pro football stadium. Thus, our football friends and other people in the world of sports teaming up with compassion to stand in the gap and make sure that these kids do not go without the urgent support that they need. Things like essential food, nutritional supplements, hygiene essentials, medical screenings for COVID-19, and much more. We need your help. Check out fillthestadium.com to learn more and to donate. And here's an update. Right now, as we speak, 70,000 kids in desperate need of help. We've actually filled 56,000 seats. How amazing is that? You guys are awesome. 56,000 kids and their families being restored what COVID-19 had potentially destroyed. But here's the thing. There's still 14,000 seats left. That's our goal. We're going to hit it. 70,000 kids with Compassion's program. We're almost there, so we need your help. Providing essential food, medical care, and support for a child and their family during this pandemic. You can donate right now at fillthestadium.com. This is a stadium that cannot remain empty, and your dollars are actually working. Places like Peru, Honduras, Ecuador, Uganda, the Philippines. This is making an impact. Let's continue to make this impact and get to 70,000 kids. Fillthestadium.com to donate today. A stadium that cannot remain empty. Fillthestadium.com.
It's Bethany Hamilton joining us here on Sports Spectrum. And I know you can relate when I tell you it's like watching your child learn how to walk. I mean, they fall down so many times in the process of learning how to walk. And most of the time they fall down and they laugh or they smile or, they just crawl or like, it's not usually a fall down and cry. That's a rarity. And I think that as people, we can all remember that in terms of failure. Like it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Traditionally, it's not a bad thing. It's something that we really can grow from. I wonder in this space where you are in life with young kids, knowing that faith and your faith in Jesus is a big part of your life. How do you find the time? Where do you fit it in? Like what's your way of like getting in a devotional or getting into your Bible or whatever the case may be? Because I know it's busy in a home with 3 little kids.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, you just got to make it a priority and like kind of make it just a part of your life. So we do children's devotional. So we just read a story every day, or sometimes when we're driving, we'll do like a podcast, usually a children one, but sometimes my husband and I are like, let's do mom and dad one. But lately my little one's so gnarly in the car. I'm just like, we're in survival mode. But if anything, we just finish the day in prayer and just talk about like what the world is like and how none of us are perfect. And we talk about like the grace of God, but also like the way God protects us through his word. And like, he calls us to action in a sense of like following his law. Like lying never produces anything good. So being honest, like taking these simple things and just talking about them with our children, with my husband, like talking about world events and how our faith plays out in those world events. And just knowing that there's this beautiful balance of law and gospel, but gospel always trumps. So God always has our back and he forgives us and accepts us just as we are. And he's made a way in all the chaos to make us whole again and, acceptable in the sight of God. And that's always our fallback. But that beauty then propels us to go and like love our neighbor and like be a decent human in the chaos of the world. And like, it starts in the home first and foremost, and then the rest like follows.
Absolutely. It certainly does. Is there like a verse that you've been holding close lately, or that you feel like God has been speaking to you in this
It's
season?
kind of just been like my favorite verse for like the last 5 years. And I just think it just speaks a lot about living life on earth and like how there's always a challenge. And it's John 16:33. I've said these things to you that in me you will have peace. In the world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And it's like God's reminding us that like first and foremost, like our peace should stem from him and his promises and his word that he provides for us. And when we know his word and we hear his word, like that's going to affirm us in the chaos. And he says that I have overcome this world on your behalf. And like, so when all else fails, like God does not fail. So we can have the peace that like all else might fail, but God is consistent yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and like forever. And that's like our mental peace, no matter how much fear or overwhelm or anxiety or trouble or pain that we may face, like we still have the peace and we can trust that God has us in the palm of his hand. And that's at the end of the day our hope.
It's so comforting, right? I mean, I know I find so much comfort in that. And I just, I think of like Jesus coming back and greeting his disciples after he rose, and his greeting was, peace be with you. Like that was the first thing that he offered them.
Yeah. It's
And
weird because I didn't like really feel like peace was like something I wanted or needed in my like younger years. And then I feel like it's like once you become like an adult and face like the chaos of the world, you're like, I need some peace. Like I need like some mental, emotional, like, so it's like seeking like God and seeking that time to like put the noise and distractions away. I created like a full-on course on just being present and like, having boundaries with our devices, our phones. I feel like this is a peace disruptor in marriages and family and parenting and friendships. Like this is not something that brings goodness into the family or home life. So having the boundaries to say no, put it away, take a break, have that time to have quietness and look each other in the eye and like share a meal together, enjoy time together, and seek God together. And that, like, life's just gonna be way more fruitful when we have the boundaries towards the things that are like stealing from us. And like, yes, I have work and like things and the things I gotta like get done, but like still like putting it aside and just having your head on right and trusting in the Lord and just having that family first approach.
Bethany Hamilton with some really good advice when it comes to putting the device aside. And, I mean, I'm certainly guilty of it as well.
For sure. We all are.
We all
or
are.
Most of us are, at least.
Yes. I won't speak for anybody but myself, but I know that it is such a distraction. And I know, like, just from talking with other moms and my mom's Bible study along the way, we talked about not only putting it away, but like when you do look at it, have it be a Bible verse that you're looking at it instead of like scrolling on social media, and like, because all of those things just put you in not a positive state of mind most of the time, because they're not reality. So if you're going to be on it, like at least be looking at something that's going to help build you up instead of something that's going to tear you down.
I know, actually, like about 6 months ago, so I have another device. You'd think that's like counter to what I just said, but I put all my social media on this old phone, and I literally cut my time down by like, I'm at a fifth of the time now compared to before. It's like my fingers would just accidentally like touch it when I like wasn't even wanting to go there. And so I was like, I just need to set some better boundaries. And like, if it means like taking my self-control and putting it away.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so helpful and nice. And like, I just get on there, get what I need to get done. And then I get off, and like, it's created a lot more freedom and peace and just health. And I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea, because then you can do the work you have to do without being
And then
distracted
I
by
can,
the
like,
other things.
yeah, I can like send an email, make a phone call, do what this is meant to do, and then like let the rest be like designated time that's short and sweet.
Right. And it's in a drawer and it's far away. And if you can, keep it out of sight, out of mind, there's a reason that there is that expression. I wonder, the other thing that you've gotten into of late is life coaching. And I wonder what made you want to embark on that journey. How do you bring faith into that conversation? Like, how do you like, I feel like when people ask me about faith, it's not something that I like to like hit people over the head with, right? It's just something that like, if it comes up, I'm so happy to share the fact that I love Jesus. So I wonder how the two of those kind of dovetail for you.
Yeah, so it's been really cool. I started with creating my like online life course, The Unstoppable Life, and that like I made it really approachable, like whether you live a life of faith or not, like you could really benefit from the courses. And then there's one course specifically that's like dives deeper into like empowering of faith, and that's like all in, you know. But I like wanted to find this balance of like really making it inviting for everyone, because that's just like my vibe is more of like just being inviting. If someone wants to ask me something, like I'm happy to talk about whatever, but like not hitting them over the head, right?
Sure.
But with the life coaching,
people, right? Like
yeah, for sure.
And your goal is always to speak to one person, and then that feels good if you reach one person.
Yeah, and it's, for me, but at the same time, like I'm not going to hide something that has given me so much hope and peace and strength in the like darkest times I've faced. So having this like intertwined balance and like open but not like pushy, but like being, just letting it flow how it flows, but also like going out of my way too to share like what's brought me hope. But with life coaching, I've been handpicking my clients and just kind of working with women that are more open and ready to like grow and push themselves, and they're in a season of like they're ready. Like, you can find that versus like someone who's they just don't know what they want. They're not ready for change. So I'm kind of like handpicking my people, and so far they've been like amazing women, and it's been really fun, and they're all pretty open to me sharing about my faith and like encouraging them and theirs. So that's been really fun, and I've been loving it.
What drew you to it? Like, what made you say, wow, like I think that's something that I'd like to do?
Yeah, it's funny because like I found myself like constantly like in a coaching mentality. Like I don't know why I just like I'd be like giving, free advice to someone that like doesn't necessarily want it, and they just like, shove it in the trash. And I just like, I don't know, I think I'm like natural born. Like I've always loved coaching myself. Like I've sought that as like an integral part of like, especially my surfing career. Like I just soak up what people like advise me towards and like to better myself. And I'm always like kind of just pushing myself, growing, learning continually. And but then I found myself just like naturally like wanting to give that, and like yeah. And then the last year I finally like was home for a long period of time. Normally like we travel a ton. We are actually going to jump on the road soon, but I was like, wow, we actually like are home enough where I could focus in on that sort of a thing, and like just encourage other women like myself that are just, overcoming adversity or going through challenges in their life, and helping them see like their potential and their beauty and their purpose and worth, and letting that drive them forward in whatever they're trying to accomplish or reach.
I wonder, I love asking people this question because I guess because I feel like it it stays the same, but it also continually changes throughout the course of our life. And I just wonder, like, what is the dream that you feel that God has put on your heart?
Oh man. I mean, honestly, probably like my greatest dream is just to like raise healthy, brave, thoughtful, like kind young men. I think our world could really benefit from just thoughtful men. And I happen to have three boys, so I'm just excited to like, especially that part of my life is first and foremost. And I just love like all my dreams are very like intertwined with them. Like I'm excited about the rest of life. My 6-year-old surfs now, and he really has the bug. So I like dream about doing like just surfing with him. And I'm not like he has to be pro or anything. I'm more just like, let's go surf and have fun together. And it's just, yeah, I'm just really exceptionally excited about that part of my life. And obviously, like I've just been given this really cool role to just inspire and encourage people, and I'll just want to continue doing that. However, it naturally flows, but also I don't know the places where I feel more drawn towards. So just taking it one day at a time, though, and having fun while doing it all.
That's got to be part of it, right? Because it's a journey and there's ups and downs, and
Yeah.
it's a lot better when you have fun along the way and laugh and smile and get out there in the ocean with your 6-year-old on a surfboard. I mean, that's it. I can't imagine that it gets any better than that.
Yeah, I'm so excited, and I just feel like when the home life is healthy, then the rest will just flow that much better. So yeah, we're homeschooling our boys and just get a lot of time together, and just excited for the future.
Well, Bethany Hamilton, it has been so great to have you here. And we should tell our listeners that if you go to bethanyhamilton.com, you can check out Adapt. There is a free resource there if you head to the webpage and check it out. And there's really some really great stuff in the content that you and your team have built and put together, and some great conversations. So I would certainly encourage people to check it out, take a lesson, see what's there. If you haven't seen Unstoppable, it's beautiful. I mean, it just is. It's just the way it was shot from a videography perspective. It's beautiful. And there's just some really powerful messages in it. So Bethany, thank you so much for the time. And it's been great to chat some of the mom stuff with you, and surfing and faith and life, and just navigating it all, and finding those smiles along the way.
Yeah, thank you, Jade, and thanks everyone for listening. Lots of love, and yeah, I hope you all can continue to adapt or be empowered in your journey to make the most of what you've got. So yeah, lots of love.
And many thanks to Bethany Hamilton for being our guest today on Sports Spectrum. And a special thanks to our friend Jade McCarthy, a contributor now here with Sports Spectrum, who does such great work and has such a wonderful resume of work that she did back in her days at ESPN. And we're happy to have her contributing with us here on Sports Spectrum and our Sports Spectrum podcast. So thanks to Jade, thanks to Bethany for a great conversation today on Sports Spectrum. Thanks to you as well for tuning in and listening. Do us a favor, click subscribe or even that follow button that's there on the podcast app that you're listening on. That way you never miss an episode of Sports Spectrum's podcast. We're dropping 3 or 4 a week sometimes, and we don't want you to miss all of the different conversations that we're having here as we bring Jesus back into the sports conversation. So make sure you subscribe and follow this podcast, and then do us one quick favor. Tell someone about Sports Spectrum. In fact, use Sports Spectrum as a resource for you to tell someone about Jesus. Maybe this is a great way to share your faith simply by sharing this podcast with Bethany Hamilton and Jade McCarthy. So do us a favor and do that. And we would just be so grateful, really, as we continue to bring Jesus into the conversation here on Sports Spectrum. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time right here on the show. Have a great rest of your day. This is the Sports Spectrum Podcast.